Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I in my group I popcorn so we don't go through that weird thing where I'm like, who's next? And everyone's like, mm. So Deja, call on someone and whoever you call on, just introduce yourself, maybe why you're here, what group you're looking to begin. Good morning, Elle.
Okay, I'll call on Autumn.
Hey everybody, good morning. I'm Autumn. I am based in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland to be exact. I am a licensed therapist and I'm also a soul coach, so empowering and helping Black women to get out of those survival cycles, to step into a life full of prosperity with a soul first approach. And I am here. I'm here as just a curious cat. I am eager to learn a little bit more about what's being, I guess you can say, what's being curated, what's being created. I don't necessarily have an answer to in regards to what kind of group I'm trying to jumpstart. If anything, I was curious to learn if there's any groups already available that need additional facilitation or assistance with being facilitated. That's kind of like, what I was leaning towards. And so I will pass it on over to Keisha.
So I'm Keisha. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. Me and Brittany are in the same city. I am a licensed therapist also. I'm a sex therapist in training, so I work in private practice. My interest in starting a group would be based on, breaking some of the stigmas around sex, getting people comfortable talking through sex, helping clients that, a lot of trauma clients, it is sex based. So, being able to talk through some of that trauma and recognize that this thing happened to you, but you're able to take back your sexual identity and create a sexual experience that feels comfortable, feels welcoming, feels safe for you. So that's pretty much my niche. Anything related to sex, I'm down to kind of talk about it and help people work through that to find what is comfortable for them. So that's my little spiel. And I'll go to Kalia. Is that how you say it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Welcome.
Um, all right. Sorry, y'all. I feel like I just hopped on coming out of the war zone out there. I got my kids running around. But thank y'all for having me. My name is Kalia Bryant. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist here in Jacksonville. Um, I guess I would call myself a change agent, meaning I help people through major life transitions. So people really come to me when they are in a crisis or when they just need help or trying to figure out what to do next. They need a middleman or a mediator in whatever situation that they're in. So I guess I do like brief therapy because I don't really keep my clients that long. I do have long-term clients, but yes, if you are going through like a divorce or a recent breakup, or you need help figuring out what to do about your job, do you want to quit? Do you want to get this job? That's what type of therapy I provide for my clients. I was doing a group therapy series before I had my baby. So this is me just kind of coming back and getting back into the swing of things. I want to come in with fresh new ideas and be inspired by what it is that we can talk about today. So maybe y'all can help me get back in there. All right. So who I don't know who hasn't gone.
Elle is our last one.
El Michelle, I love that. Yes, your turn.
Alrighty, thank you all so much. Good morning. I'm El Michelle. I'm also here in Jacksonville, Florida, originally from St. Louis, Missouri. And yeah, I am in higher education. I'm a director of the Rise Center there. So I just help prepare all of our multicultural and marginalized identities on campus, tackle the real world. I help them find money to pay for their schooling while they're in school. And then I help them find internships and job offers. And then I do human development and community resilience training for them throughout their matriculation on campus. Over the last decade, I have facilitated a leadership academy called Queens United back in Missouri, where I'm from. And a lot of the work there is rooted in helping college women develop as leaders, but also heal from their friendship trauma. So teaching them how to just be one, a unified front as women who are going to be tackling the world together. I am currently in school to become a therapist. I'm in my fourth term. And as of January 2026, I will be eligible to start my practicum. So I met Brittany in an event. Love, love, love her work. And I'm very excited to be part of this group. So if I was to say anything about like the group that I want to start, I would say I really just want to nurture the group I already have. We're at the 10-year mark, and so I want to bring my organization here to Jacksonville, and I want to shift a little bit of what we do more onto mental health. So I'm always looking for facilitators for that. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. And iPhone 2, I don't see you visually and there's no name. Um, would you like to introduce yourself? Kind of share a little bit more about why you're here. If not, we'll keep it moving. On three, two, one. Okay, we're gonna keep it moving. Also, y'all, because I got your book by my desk. This is El Michelle's book. And put this thing down since I got it. And why I love you. Yeah, and that's my book. And and why I love her book so much because it's really the basis of the group that I have. So let me introduce myself. I'm Brittany. I am a clinical intern, graduated end of 2023. I've been employed over the last all of 2024 through a private practice in Tampa, which is where I moved from. I started working with Charlie Health for like 8 months, too deep, very traumatic, a lot of everything, and that just let me know that that is not the type of counseling style or population for me. I worked with like a lot of children, adolescents, and young adults. Right now, primarily my focus is just like Black women ages 18 to about 35, life transitions, communication, and specifically, I notice a lot of the people I serve are struggling in their relationships. That COVID year took a lot of us out. And I would say primarily it's like that 22 to 27 who I found are struggling the most. I'm also an author. I wrote Sacred Self-Care, which is a 10-week guided workbook, kind of approaching anxiety from a holistic lens. So if you're not in the space of wanting to take medication, or you may not even feel like you're ready for therapy, this is like pre-therapy for those people. When I spent the last 2 years writing this book, and when it released, um, I had so many individuals coming to me wanting to process certain weeks that were very difficult to get through. And that's really where my group formed. So I will say to start out, I think not that you so much have to have a curriculum, but if you have, I would say creating a freebie. I think I'm also in a couple weeks going to have kind of a class around a lead magnet. So putting a freebie out there that your population is looking for, gathering their information and nurturing them through email automation sequences. What I found out is people that connected with me 6 and 4 months ago are now becoming clients, or they've seen me in their inbox every couple of weeks over the last 6 months. And so now those are the people part of my group. So it really keeps my practice full and it keeps like my groups on an ongoing basis. Um, and I also had a little guy I want to kind of go through. So let's talk about some benefits of group. Depending on what your price is, like your individual price, group is very cost effective. And not everybody has access to care to go on an individual basis. I use a sliding scale fee. On the higher end, I charge 90 to 120 per session. And then for those who can provide documentation, or I like literally just know you need some help and you really don't got it, I go as low as $60, 60 and 75. So with group, I charge a very small percentage of that. For my more ambitious women and C-level executives, full-time jobs, leading families, that rate is $25 a session over a course of 10 weeks. That is not something I publicly um, promote because those are the people who I sometimes either meet one-on-one or come to me for individualized care. And I kind of understand as a clinician who is going to mesh and who maybe is not going to mesh. And I think that is like subjective and up to your best judgment. Because if I have two people in the room who are very affluent and they're in a way different tax bracket, right? And then I have someone who is literally thinking about how they're going to pay their car insurance or eat. The tension I found out because I ran two beta groups. The tension sometimes that can arise is people don't really feel understood or seen. So when the differences of people are too vast, I think that doesn't always make a recipe for like good cohesion in a group. So we want people around who can normalize one another's experience. And sometimes that's not always with age. In my first British group, I had a 27-year-old and a 42-year-old. And although they were in different points of life and had different experiences, the 42-year-old was able to speak from a place of having like a parallel life to the 27-year-old, right? And like I said, in my other beta group, I ran something kind of around like socioeconomic status and job was kind of like what I was specifically focused on. And I just realized some people do not mesh in those ways. So, yes, you can build community and connection, but when people don't feel seen and don't feel like others can get their experience, then that kind of defeats the purpose of the group. So, um, common myths that I think I found around groups is that it's based in support. Your group can be based in support, but we are therapists, so we have another level of training and education. So if you're a coach, group for you is going to look very different than a clinician. And so I think making sure that you are actually putting forth what your education and the value that you bring in that way, and that we're just not in a group circle talking about men ain't shit. I know, girl, tell me your horror story. Tell me your horror story. And now we're just really bonding over the horror stories. But then it's like, what is next? And then what? Right. So we know there has to be something a little deeper when it comes to being in group therapy versus a support group. So, next, creating your mission and goals in consideration for your group. Okay. Three different things, three different parts. My mission for my group is I'm empowering women to manage their anxiety through holistic connections and practices. Okay. Very simple, straight to the point, right? Very broad because everyone who's in my group is going to present in a different way, but they all still fit under that umbrella. Okay. So first trying to see like what am I trying to get from this group? How am I trying to serve these women? What do I want to give to them? Right. And then your goals, right? I have two main goals. I have a therapeutic goal and then a group processing goal. So we are looking at symptom reduction, right? We all kind of rate where we are when we come in 6 domains. So I rank mental, physical, emotional, financial, social, and spiritual. I can say that again or slow that down if needed. Um, so I rank 6 domains at the start of therapy. And that's part of my pre-assessment, which we'll get into a little bit further. But my pre-assessment is ranking where they feel like they are in these domains, because when I get this back and you say, well, I'm a 9 in all of them, I would then question, why do you want to be here? If your social life is a 9, if emotionally and mentally you were at a 9 out of 10, this is being ranked. What would be your goal and your mission? So if you're like, I just want to find friends, and babe, I can give you a meetup link of a good happy hour that you can visit. But this may not be necessarily for you. If I have someone who ranks everything in a 1, I would say, okay, babes, you may need some individualized care, right? If life is feeling that low, that heavy, um, that was mental. Yeah. Mental, now typing in. So we have mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, and financial. So those are the 6 domains that I rank. And then, of course, at the end of therapy, we're like ranking those and processing them together as a group. Anybody, before I move on, have questions up until this point of just thinking about mission goals so far? Oh, good. Okay. Um, Consideration, which I think kind of goes hand in hand with our mission, but can be different. Because are you providing psychoeducation? Is the root of the group psychoeducation? Is the root of the group just process oriented? Like if we have a group around relationships or a group around trauma, are we like processing the trauma in real time, right? Sometimes trauma survivors have never spoken about some of the things. So this could be the first time that they've felt um, safe relationships to the point where they can process. Is it support focused? Or is it a hybrid? So because the curriculum I use for my groups is my actual book, and there is space to process a lot of the things there. What I really loved about our groups is we have a week in between. So let's just say we're in week 3, right? You would be doing the previous week, right? You would be doing week 3 after week 2, and then we would come to week 3 and we would be processing together, talking about week 3 and kind of more reflective. Right now, if you need extra support and you need to process, you bring that in. But what I loved about giving people the space to process outside was some people came in and didn't feel the need to process with the group, but there were members of the group who did need to process. So then there were others who were able to provide support. So thinking about your considerations. Are you providing psychoeducation? Is this process oriented? Is it support focused? Is it a hybrid and you do a little bit of everything? Because that's the basis of my group. Psychoeducation is probably the biggest one, because in this book, I'm speaking from a lens of like CBT. So it's a lot of education. And at least the first 2 weeks of the curriculum are very information dense. So I don't want you to come here and just think like, oh, we're going to talk. Like the goal is that you leave here with actual tangible skills, tools to take with you. And hoping that that increases the rank that you have for those 6 domains. Okay. Everybody good? Awesome. So let's talk about defining ideal participants. um, I kind of spoke a little bit about this at the beginning of why in my some of my beta groups, I realized that socioeconomic status or job and lifestyle was something that actually created a barrier. So think about what your inclusion and exclusion criteria is. And I formed this in a model of my head of saying, like, if I was marketing to my ideal group member, one individual, what does she do for a living? Where does she hang out? What type of relationships does she have? What does she do for fun? Right? That's something that I kind of conjured up to number one, know that I'm marketing effectively because when you're speaking to everybody, you're really speaking to no one. So you really want to niche down on who that person is. And of course, that will vary. I would say for me, it kind of was easier because my ideal client is actually me. So I know those things about myself already, right? You're fun, you're ambitious, you want to change, like you want to live softer, right? But you may not have the connection or the know-how because you weren't taught this as a child or you haven't had safe relationships before where this could be modeled. So defining your inclusion and exclusion, including diagnoses, right? If you have a personality disorder, schizophrenia, severe OCD, OCPD, my groups are not the group for you. But like I do have a colleague, Raven, who has a group for trauma, right? Specific trauma. And her inclusion is you have to be in individual therapy already to be able to be in the group because what you want to refrain from is, once again, everyone coming in is just trauma dumping. And then people are left with these emotional wounds, crying, emotionally drained. And they're like, all right, group is over. See you next week. That's a lot and that's heavy, and they will need consistent support. So, if your group is going to be something a little deeper, assessing, through your consult of where this person is, if they've been to therapy before, do they have a past mental health diagnosis? Um, and also my biggest part of like my inclusion exclusion criteria was the stage of change that they're in. If you don't think the way that you spaz out at people and cannot control your emotions or your impulsivity, if you don't see that as a problem, Houston, we have a problem. If you are in, I would say, that pre-contemplation where you're like, I think I wanna kind of, but I just don't know. I need you to be like, hey, I know something needs to change and I'm ready to do the work. Then this is a group for you. Michelle. Oh yeah, I like that. Let's use those hand raises.
Hey, Brittany, I really would like you to chime in on how to word and communicate those exclusions. I think for me, just coming from the DEI space in higher ed, I'm very cautious of how to convey those exclusions in a way that doesn't seem, I don't know, rude or just like would turn anybody off. So, how do you communicate that? How do you put that in language?
Yeah, and I think maybe even feeling like discriminatory. I don't want to discriminate on like towards you based off of what you are dealing with and what you're going through. So I think for my pre for my pre-assessment and my phone consultation, I have a phone consultation before the pre-assessment. And in the phone consultation, like I ask those questions. And so if someone were to say, no, I feel super paranoid, personality disorder, schizophrenia runs in my family, and I have borderline. I say, are you in therapy right now? Right? See how it works with you getting individualized support because sometimes the group space isn't necessarily the most, let me see what the word I would use, the most helpful for people who may need your higher, like who may need that level of care. And I think I keep posing it as like, I want to do what's best for you, babes. Right. And if that's a higher level of care, if that's individualized support, or I think also the goal of group is to funnel people to your individual, right? So it's just like we want to keep the money in-house and kind of rolling. Yeah, you're paying $20 a week here, but you may end in 10 weeks and be like, wow, $200. That's what I spent over 3 months. I could spend $200 a month seeing her a couple of times bi-weekly on my own. So I think offering that, like I would love to work with you and kind of hone on and like hone in on the specific struggles you have. I don't think that would be conducive in a group environment. I want you to have your time to share freely. I want you to have the space to, process these really tough things week by week with no barriers, right? Because we have 6 people in the room. Everyone kind of needs that time. So I think I would pose it like that. Is that helpful?
Yes, that is helpful. And also, this isn't anything that you are like typing on a website or like posting on your social media. These are individualized screenings and conversations. Okay.
Yes, only individual screenings. And I think that's where it can get really iffy. Um,
Mhm.
Writing it somewhere and someone saying, oh, you don't see borderline, clients with borderline. It's like, well, I do, not in a group format. Now, if I had a group for borderline or personality disorders, I would probably extend the time and have a more in-depth um, consult or assessment. So, like, even the
Right.
way
Because it,
I exactly. Even the way I have my first session is a very, I do biopsychosocials in a chronological way. So I start from early childhood and we talk through about your life through the developmental stages versus starting with what brings you into therapy, what's going on, how are you feeling, da da da. So even my assessment from a one-on-one place is very different. And I think if I had a group that was around something more severe, I would probably do one individual session with each client prior to even putting them in a group because I need to hear and learn more about like the root of where this stuff is coming from. Right. And then I will refer them out. There's groups that exist for trauma and personality disorders and hallucinations and delusions, like that exists. So I think I would even go as far as, which is what I'm trying to do now, kind of create a referral network. So I don't have to necessarily turn someone down, but I can like per help you get in the right direction. Okay. Um, so yeah, inclusion, exclusion, their diagnosis and presenting issues, anything too deep, I kind of try to stay away from, assessing their readiness for change, and then safety considerations. So, like ensuring that no one is in a crisis, suicidal ideation, active self-harm. I kind of want to make sure I won't have to report you a group. That's the last thing I want to do. Because then now I got to have five, six other people involved and like, who was there to witness? And now you're going, I was not playing. Um, and now you're going to kind of have these other witnesses who may have to attest to you, doing something. So I try to stay away from that as well. And what I think, y'all, is we can just go back to that link and rejoin if we don't get through and you guys want to come back. Because I want to make sure I give y'all time. And my next client is not until 11. So let me do something really quick. I'm going to schedule another call at 9:40, send you all the link, and then you all could join there. Okay, so I got this next link scheduled. Okay, this is a good part. Our assessment. Let me pause. Anybody have a question up until this point? Still good. Okay. Um, Screening, matching clients to make sure group cohesion. I kind of talked a little bit about that. But let's think about the individual consult, intake forms, and like readiness assessments. Now, although I don't have a specific readiness assessment, I look for that through my consult call and the pre-assessment. And actually, I wonder if I can share my screen with y'all and we can walk through like what my pre-assessment looks like. Because I do it through Google Forms. And I'd love for y'all to just see what that looks like. Got my feedback form. Am I ready? Yes, here we go. Intake. So because I am a holistic practitioner, some of the things I make sure that I assess for is literally like, do you drink water? Are you drinking a whole bunch of liquor? Do you smoke? Do you work out? Do you get in the sun? Like really the basics. Because when you have people who are telling you, I eat all this processed food, I don't have any friends, drinking is my coping mechanism. It's hard to say that you're going to come into group and this will be life changing or things will make sense or hit in a certain way if life literally is working in the way that it is for you already. So, oh yeah, let me copy this link. Okay, y'all. This is it. The next link that we'll join. It's set for 9:45 because this will end, I think, at 9:40. And you can just log in early. And make sure you copy and paste that somewhere because I know when this ends, that link will go to. So go ahead and copy that. Okay, my link is finally pulled up. Gonna share my screen. Can everybody see it okay? No? I see Autumn says yes. Keisha says yes. Elle, can you not see it still? Yeah.
I got it now.
Okay. I think I stopped it and then tried to reshare it. But now I don't see it at all. Can y'all see? Yes. Okay. Awesome. So, um, I put everything together. My intake, confidentiality, and consent form. They are just questions on here, but I use simple practice, so they are actual forms that they would fill out too. So, like, do you understand everything is confidential, with the exception of basically what confidentiality is? Yes or no? Personal information. Asking them about their relationship status. How would you rate the satisfaction? If you are a parent, how many kids and what their ages are, right? A true background into their life. If you work, right? If you don't work at all, is very different. Is working full time or working overtime or nonstop work, right? We had a very good conversation in our last group about the privilege that it is when you have a man that takes care of you, right? And a client said to me, well, yeah, Brittany, you are ambitious in that, but like, do you pay bills? Inside, I'm like, well, I'm the facilitator, that ain't your business, right? But number two, that's a real valid frustration and question to have. And usually, an individual, I usually do not self disclose. It would take me a lot to like self disclose to connect something, right? So that's not something I would usually do. And this is the instance that I was called out that it's kind of like, I kind of felt like a punk if I don't. And it's like, no, I don't have much financial strain, right? What does that mean for you? I had to keep coming back to you. If my man does take care of me or I don't pay any bills, how does that make you feel? Right. And then we got into a real conversation around privilege and the differences if you are a single mom. Yeah, I got a toddler and life is hard, but I'm not doing it by myself. I have the support. And if I didn't want to work, I wouldn't have to. Right. That's something worthy of calling out. And so, what I think my client in that instance really wanted to feel seen for all the hard work that she does and what she has to put up with, which other people sometimes don't understand. And we had other single moms in our group, right, who could support and pour into her in a way that was not going to be well received by me since I am not in that place. I think that's also another really powerful and beautiful thing about group therapy. It's like I'm not the only one in the room, right, who have these things to kind of give or to share. So ask them about their job. And then we go into medical and mental health history. So this is where we go. Are there any past mental health conditions? Are you taking any medication? And have you done group or individual therapy before? Like, have you been hospitalized? Mind you, I'm learning about this in the consult call. So I already know the answers to these questions, which is why they have the pre-assessment because they've been accepted into the group. What sometimes people will do is say no in the call and then go through this questionnaire and think about it and say, oh no, when I was younger, right, I self-harmed, I was Baker acted, I had this trouble from 16 to 21. So we kind of come back and, oh, I'm 35 and I haven't done that in 10 years. Okay, that's one thing. But if you find yourself cutting on and off into adulthood, then that would probably tell me something a little bit different. Um, Self-harm, suicide attempts, thoughts of harming anybody else, and then life transitions in specifics. So, what major life transitions are you currently experiencing right now? And then I go through a long, very, very long list of symptoms. So, I kind of slowly go down so you guys can kind of take a look at that. Um, with my group members, because I'm really specific about who I'm marketing to and what that person looks like, a lot of their answers all look the same. A lot of them have struggling with the same symptoms, are expressing the same things. Things I'm looking for, hallucinations, delusions, paranoia. right? Those are my red flag things that if that's something that you're feeling or where you're at, then we have another conversation. So y'all, I'm going to log out, hop onto that other link in the chat, and then I'll see y'all there, okay? We're just gonna keep, is this helpful for y'all to see the assessment form I have? Okay, so we'll kind of keep going. Because this part I feel like is one of the more important parts. I want to know what you already do or what helps, because that's going to let me know, like intervention wise, um, what to offer you basically in therapy. So, what coping strategies or tools have you tried in the past to manage? Do you have a support system? That's also super important because once again, if you are very isolated, one of my group members, this group is her support system. And I love that they still stay in touch and they have a group message and they sent me a picture. They went to happy hour, they did a beach trip. Like they really, I call it the girl gang because they literally are their own little group of five now. And they really be outside together. One didn't watch one baby when she had to go out of town to visit her dad. I'm just like, that is my whole purpose for the group is so you can create that. So if you don't have a support system, that is very telling. Family history of mental health issues. Do you exercise? If you don't move, we got some problems, right? Do you sleep? If you don't sleep, we have some problem. Do you drink and how much? Do you do illicit drugs? Do you smoke cigarettes? How many caffeinated beverages do you have? And then what does your diet consist of? If it's a whole bunch of processed food, if you're not even eating real food, another issue that we have. And then their goals, why they're seeking therapy, said goals from therapy, what they want to gain from the experience, what do they expect from me to make this experience meaningful. Some people said, I need you to blah, blah, blah. And if it's something unrealistic, that's something that I can broach at the beginning because I think setting expectations for people is very important. If you're coming in here for anxiety, overthinking, self-doubt, and just confidence. And you say, well, one girl said, well, I want to talk about my like a relationship I was in. The boyfriend was cheating on her. And she kind of processed it a little bit in group, but she wanted me to, and I'm not a relationship coach, right? So I'm not here to tell you specifically you how to show up in your relationship. Because if that man is cheating, that man is going to cheat. So I don't think there's anything that I can say that is going to help the dynamic and the infidelity in the relationship. And then anything you want your therapist to know about the journey. Once again, consenting for treatment. You know it's going to be telehealth. You know that this is telemedicine. I'm a professional in this way. And then once again, that confidentiality and the consent. So that is what my intake or my pre-assessment looks like. Even though some of those questions on here is a part of my consult call that will either include or exclude you from the group altogether. Okay. Y'all have any questions about that? All right.
I do have a question.
Yep, chime on in.
What can you paint a picture of like the time frame between like their initial contact, phone consultation, and then shifting into start of the group?
Yes. So I'll say it depends on when you have your group slated. Raven, she has a start date for her group. You need to have everything ready, come prepared, blah, 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 by this date. And if you're there, you're there. If you're not, you're not. So it should have 9 people. She could run a group of 4, right? Because I actually am a private practice owner and I'm paying myself, like I run groups on the basis that they fill. So on my website, I have a group, like a form, and one of the drop downs on the group form is like, what time are you interested in? Friday at 11 a.m. or Tuesday at 7 p.m. And so then they choose. And so when I meet 6 people, and as they're reaching out, I'm kind of doing it running, right? So if you reach out to me on a Monday, I'm responding to you by Tuesday because I have really all of my stuff automated. So the initial automated email is like, thank you for considering me on your healing journey. Send over some times and date that work for a brief call. The call ain't nothing but like 5 to 7 minutes. It ain't really that deep. And some people can get caught talking because they're so excited. So 10 minutes at max. And so we're having that initial call, that I'm getting that information and even seeing if you're even a match for this and if you're okay with payment, if you're okay with time, of course, checking off the boxes. And then once we have that call, you're getting this assessment. So that could be a week. Now, there are people, I think I created an ad for one of the posts that I had. I had over 70 inquiries. People like, oh, this ain't free. Never mind. Oh, some people I sent that automated email back that they never responded to the email. Right. So 3 weeks later, then you respond, but you're just in time because I have a group starting on the 22nd. So next Tuesday. That group didn't fully get formed until the 17th. And I started marketing for this group um my 10th. So June the 25th was when I had week 10 of my last group, or like one of my groups. I started marketing it that week, and then now it's the 17th, and my group is full. So that took 1, 2, 3 weeks to basically do that whole process. And I guess it just depends. Like if you are saying, for me, I need 5 to 6 women in a group. I don't want to go over any more than that. And that's the part that we're going to talk about next, kind of like the format, size, the components of actually running the group itself. But I think that part is really up to you. Um, if it needs to feel more concise and scheduled in a way that works for you, I'm just a big proponent of like whatever works for you. But everything I do, because I'm like the front desk girl, I'm the therapist, I'm the marketer, I'm security team. Since I'm everything of the practice, I really have to ensure that, like, I don't even have a calendar or scheduling link because I couldn't work my life like that, right? It wouldn't necessarily make sense for me. So the moment I get that inquiry through that form, and that's another thing, have a form that literally asks all of the questions that you need asked, that you have those answers when you get on the call. So now it's more like you kind of know the basis. Now I'm just learning about you, but you already know about me, what I'm coming with, what this looks like, and it makes the process so smooth. So for me, it's ongoing and running just with how people reach out to me. I definitely try to make it a point within 24 hours. Is there a certain number I'll say more about that. What do you mean?
So for the intake form that you just showed, I know you're trying to collect um, all the general information, bio, psycho, and social, but is there a certain length of questions that you suggest before it feels too lengthy for the potential patient?
Yep. So can everybody see my screen right now?
Mhm.
Okay. So the two forms I'm talking about are different. The pre-assessment we looked at, that is when someone is interested, they clock off and say, yes, I want to be a part of therapy. And I bring them on and say, yes, you're in. So that is lengthy because now you're a part of the group. This form that I'm talking about is on my site, and this is to inquire.
Got it. Okay.
So this is relatively short. Of course, name, email, phone. What's the best way to connect? Most people choose text, which is perfect because I would rather text. And then you go and see, what time are you interested in? Have you done this before? Are you in therapy now? And what are your goals for therapy? Right. So this form is relatively short, but it's like I don't really need too much information from you just yet. But I think for your form, whether you create a form on your site or just like a landing page, like what I will say is that people who want to be a part, the amount of questions is not keeping them from being a part. You know what I mean? Like I don't see something as being too lengthy per se. But this is pretty straightforward and relatively, let me see what my individual form looks like. Yeah. Yeah, so this is pretty short too. Like, what are you interested in? How do you want to be contacted? Do you know you're going to be paying out of pocket? And then do you want a consultation? Some people don't even want a consultation. They're like, I read enough about you. I seen you online. I know I want to work with you. And then I just send them my simple practice link. They make their portal, they get everything in, and they send me over times that they want to schedule. So even I think relatively both of these forms are relatively like still pretty short. But that pre-assessment, no, make that pre-assessment as long as you feel like you need as far as like the information you want to get, because that is going to eliminate all the back and forth and the talking and things that you got to ask them to try to figure out from them. Give it to them and let them do the hard work of putting it on some paper. So all you got to do is just reflect on it. Um, okay, so we talked about individual consult, intake form. And then like I just showed you all the pre-assessment. I use Simple Practice. That's a platform I'm on. So whatever corresponding platform, I'm sure they have the same thing, but it sends out documents. So on their online portal, would you all like to see that? What that looks like too? Okay. So let me go to my Simple Practice really quick. So where did y'all go? Are you on? All right, can everybody see the screen okay? So let's just, and of course, I'm showing you all my cases and these names, so this is all confidential as well. Um, so let's just say, I think it's this button. I'm trying to think, how would I, where the, oh, no, I know where to go. Or do I? Files. Okay. So Simple Practice will send all of these things. Get their driver's license, a consent for telehealth, privacy practices, consent for psychotherapy, practice policies, their identifications, demographics form, an intake questionnaire, which I have with this too, which is really short, but just to say that I did it, consent for observation, credit card information, confidentiality. Like the good thing about Simple Practice is the moment I add someone as a client, everything is there and I just send those documents over and then they e-sign. So my intake is more like for me, and then the legalities of therapy itself is for Simple Practice, kind of just does that all for you. And with Simple Practice, I think it might be, I don't know what the individual price is, but I do the $99 a month, and that allows you to have groups up to 15. So it might be like 69 for just a regular. I actually don't know that might be like 59 or 69 a month for just the platform. And then if you want the group platform, it's 99 a month. But I love it because it's like it kind of takes care of everything, host everything in one place. So okay. Any questions before I move on? Right. Now we're going to talk about the structure of the actual group, right? Recording this too, yes. So if you want to close versus an open group, my group is closed. When you sign up, you are these 5 people, 6 people, and you have to commit to 10 weeks. An open group would be if you want to show up, if you don't want to show up, anybody can join. So very open. There's not like a specific time commitment. You might just open something up once a week for just women in your area to join. And then the duration. Mine is 10 weeks. I think Raven's trauma group is 6 weeks. Another colleague I have of mine, they're doing like a perinatal group that is 12 weeks. So think about the length of the sessions, like the length of the time. I feel like the longer it is, the more structure you want to have versus the shorter it is, you can be a little bit more fluid with how everything could look. And then the frequency and length of sessions. I do 10 weeks for 1 hour, but a lot of the feedback that I got is that the hour is not enough. I hate to break it to them. I don't think I got no more time in my schedule to do 90 minutes or anything more, to be honest. But I think about if I did 90 minutes, what would that price increase look like? Right? Like, what would make it worth it for me to take out a half an hour and another hour of time? Because relatively speaking, I'm only making 90 bucks an hour, right? And that is what I would like to make. I'd like to stay in that window, which is why I do 5 to 6 women. So I can make either 75 to 90. And I'm also not licensed and I'm also new at this. So I'm taking all of that into mind. But think about like what do you need to get paid for the hour to show up? Because for some women, $15 a week was too much for them. I think that is telling. Or like I said, I have a more affluent group that I don't promote that pays 25 and I think I might even shoot to go 40, but I met a woman in the city who does $90 an hour for group. I clutch my pearls because I'm like, I make that in 1 hour and you're making that per one person, right? So I think it just goes to shows like the people are out there. How you're connecting with them and marketing to them, that part is really up to you. But I think people pay and will invest in what they feel like is worthy to invest in. Um, Group size. I say 5 to 6, but what do you all think is like ideal group size?
I think it depends on whether or not it's in person or virtual.
Okay. And the difference?
Um, yeah, because something about in person, it's a lot because you have to account for all the variables, the space that you're in, like you said, the status and the women coming together and actually seeing each other.
Mm,
Um, so I would probably, honestly, for both, I would keep it smaller. Um, and that's just from experience. Whereas if you would ask me before, I would say more people in person, due to the fact that, you can talk to a group, but it's just harder to do that on the virtual sphere because you have so many people.
yeah, right.
I would say that, oh, hi, Kat.
Wiley.
How cute.
Right
Um,
there.
I
Don't.
would lean more towards an even number, and let me tell you why. Because I find that when it's odd, if somebody is coming in with, the background experience of like being a middle child or always being the oddball out, I would want to give them a fighting chance to have somebody that they can pair up with. And so I would want to stay with an even number so that no one feels left out.
Okay. And that,
I think it also depends on your comfort level. Like, because a big group could be overwhelming if you're the facilitator, because, what if people aren't meshing, things aren't, people aren't getting along. Whereas a smaller group, you can kind of rein it in a little bit more. So I guess it's depending on, like, that would be something you have to kind of take assessment of. Are you okay with a bigger or smaller group? How you feel about, okay, if there are 10 or 15 people, is that too much for you? So I think it, depends on what your comfort level in with working with people.
yeah, agreed. Agreed. I like 5, but will allow 6 because I have some people who are inquiring, and then I don't have enough for that next cohort yet, and they are ready now. So it's like I'm not going to turn down this $150 for the time being. So let's go ahead and just make this a 6 instead of 5. What's really beautiful, something I learned in my program, so at Northwestern, they made us like come in person to for a weekend to do group. Like you were, of course, with all your colleagues, and they said, these are the 6 topics, and they assigned you one, and you would be a facilitator, someone would be a co-facilitator, and you would take over that topic. Something I learned in that group setting of being a facilitator and just a group member and now running groups is that groups will start taking on their own identity. And they say, this is how you know you're doing groups correctly. There is going to be someone who sticks in the background who doesn't share. There's going to be someone who is the main talker who takes the spotlight. There's going to be someone who challenges. There's going to be someone who immediately goes with the flow and just tries to bridge people together when there's conflict. There should be rupture. There should be repair, right? These are elements that we want to see in a group because what's so beautiful about the group and just the communal space is it should be like a microcosm of the world, right? It's supposed to represent what life could be like in your relationships outside of this group. So when you learn to kind of beef with someone out of good nature. Do you know what I mean? Like when you learn to not see eye to eye with someone, but you can communicate it through in real time and not get flustered, shut down, cuss them out, be angered by it, say, I'm not going to return back to group, right? All the things that you would usually do in your relationships in the world, shut down, whatever. You're mimicking something in this space. So groups are going to take over an identity of their own. And what I find by like the 6th to 7th week, my groups essentially could run on their own, meaning everybody knows the flow of the check-in, the main thing that we're doing that week, right? Because I have a curriculum. And that's why I love the curriculum piece and giving them an outline. So I have an automated email that even though you have the book and you know what we're talking about, because you know what you wrote and did the homework on, I have an automated email that comes out the day before that says briefly, this is what we talked about, what came up, what we reflected on last week, and this is what the next week will look like. Is everybody familiar with Flowdesk? Okay. So Flowdesk is what I use for all of my email automation. If you guys are on my email list, that's where you would be getting all these things from. And I kind of want to show you guys. Okay, there we go. I know I was gonna share this much, y'all. I would have been a little bit more ready. My bad. So I have folders, or actually, let me not go to the folder. Let's go to the email. Um, I'll do something. Maybe like in the middle of that first group. Okay. No, not. I didn't want to look at that. I want to show y'all just what. Oh, I'm gonna have to duplicate it or view in the browser. Okay. So this is how an email would look, right? At the beginning, last week we shared and we go into some stuff that we did last week. And then for our next session, this is what you can expect. So once again, you know what week 3 looks like in the book, and you know what you just did for the homework. But now I do like another breakdown. Every week was what are our objectives? Like what do we want to hit and reach on? And then what are the actual activities that we will be doing? Um, some of these weeks, we didn't even do anything in the email at all. Like one week, we went off on a whole tangent of like entrepreneurship because that group had a lot of entrepreneurs, and there was one person trying to leave their job, and she had so many questions, and they were excited that they were like the experts in the room, and someone was looking to them for this expertise. So like we didn't do nothing with the book. We didn't do nothing with none of this. It was on something else. So I think that's a good part about just having the structure because if everybody shows up and they're just like silent, waiting for you, what do? We already have something. And if that organically leads into something else, then it just organically leads into something else. So that is kind of how I kept track along the way of week by week of having objectives and goals for each session. And then speaking of like the session components, right? We know that every member is, or every group will kind of take on their own identity. Every group, every member will kind of play their own role. But the actual session components, For me, it started with the check-in. If y'all are familiar with like rose, bud, and thorn, something beautiful that happened this week, something that is blossoming. Autumn, I think I actually saw you post this not too long ago. A rose, bud, and thorn. Yeah, I commented. And then your thorn, something that's like maybe painful or negative for the week. Then we go into our main activity or topic. So in that way, I may introduce something, right? Because my group was really rooted in psychoeducation. I may root, I may reveal something or provide psychoeducation around something, and that may take 5 minutes of me actually presenting and going hard into a point. And then our processing and discussion. So I think week 2 is where I bring up the framework of what CBT is. All right, we checked in. Session 1, we spent icebreakers. Everybody created like chimed in, created group rules. What do you all need to see and have within each other? To y'all is playing. Okay, 10 minutes left. I can take that. What do y'all need to have and see in each other for this to work for you? So as a group, that was their first time meeting, but I allowed them to create that for themselves, right? Main activity and topic. I talked a little bit about CBT, what it is, what it looks like. We talked about this cycle. Bye, Autumn. Let's stay connected, okay? All right, have a good day. And then we process and discuss. So that can be what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Actually, do an exercise in a book where you list out what your CBT cycle looks like for you. We share what those things are. A lot of their thoughts were very similar around body dysmorphia, not showing up or appearing this way. How does that lead you into, how does that affect your feeling? What feelings do you have? We looked at the feelings wheel. How does that show up in your behaviors? I isolate, I cover up more, I ask a lot of questions. I'm really hyper vigilant when whatever that looks like. So then we discuss something and then we close. One of the pieces of feedback that I got from my group is they felt like at the beginning, session was in and it was just like, all right, bye. And they were like, we want something that kind of like you gift us back into the world with. We just don't like that it just stops. So we started like ending 5 to 7 minutes earlier, doing your breath work, each having like a word or a phrase that described this week for them, this session. They reflected on that. So we actually started doing like a proper closing toward the end because I did not have that at all. I was just like, all right, y'all, 6:59. I'll see y'all later. And they did not like that. But that is what's so good also about the feedback form, which I hope to get to because it told me and showed me like what I need to do better, what I could take out, what I can just do throughout the process. So looking at post assessments, how do you track progress? For me, it was ranking those domains. How do you evaluate effectiveness? For me, it was, I'm gonna go back to a Google form because I had a post, like what do you call it? Feedback form. There we go. Feedback form. And then depending on who you're helping, you can use standardized measures, right? My group was for anxiety. Some of those women didn't necessarily have clinical anxiety, but just that overwhelming feeling of expecting the worst, overthinking, not being able to get out their head, right? So it kind of aligns with the symptoms of anxiety. So I didn't really give any standardized measures, but you can. If it's a depression group or people are coming in with depression or anxiety related diagnosis, you can give them the GAD-7, PHQ-9. Goal setting worksheets, or just self report surveys, which is what my ranking the 6 domains was. Um, okay, where y'all at? Because I want to show you my feedback form. Okay. So my feedback form, they ranked what they thought about the experience of the actual group and the group structure. How would you rate the timing and the length? If 60 minutes was too long or too short, what is ideal timing? How did you like the weekly structure? Did you feel like it was balanced or effective? How effective was the actual curriculum workbook for this group? Was it helpful to have a shared curriculum through the process? What I realized from 7 groups is everybody ranked 5 on this. I'm not saying you got to have a curriculum that you follow, but create a framework that feels organic for you and aligns with the mission of your group. Do you feel like the topics that we covered were relevant? What other topics should be covered? A lot of them said relationships, like romantic relationships. Um, was it helpful to have prompts outside of work? How valuable did you find group meetings? We also met for 9 weeks virtually, and then our 10th week was in person. So I think that also kind of comes into where you are, how often you want to meet, where you want to meet. Go ahead, Elle.
Hey, Brittany, question.
Mhm.
For these group sessions, are you providing food, refreshments? Like, what does that element look like?
Yes. For
Okay.
week 10, because I only did it in person for week 10, but we had a catered meal, hired a photographer. I have a Cooper's Hawk membership, so I just like stacked my bottles leading up, and then I just bought like 4 or 5 bottles. Um, yeah, so we spent that first little bit eating. And mind you, like you just heard the most intimate details of someone's life that you don't even know.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you're in person. So I think that was one thing that kind of nerve-wracked me a little bit of like, okay, now that we're here and y'all don't really know each other, but now, like now we're here, how do we kind of ease into it? So I think cheersing with wine, eating first, just like, and I have a really cute backyard, so I think the environment that you place them in when they meet for that 10th week is very important. I have an office space, but it's looking a little raggedy right now. So I thought about that. Like I could have them in my office. That would be cool. And it's like it wouldn't. I brought them to my home and that felt very it was very intimate, I'll say the least. So yeah, I did it all. And but my nanny, she has a catering company, Dominican folks. So we had some Dominican food and my homegirl who got a nice camera came and just took some some pictures of us. So it wasn't nothing too crazy, but I will say probably what I spent was like a week's worth of what I would make in that group, which it's like it's a sacrifice, right? I'm willing to go above and beyond and make sure everyone's dietary restrictions are met. They feel comfortable. Now, if I would have had to rent out a space financially, it wouldn't have made sense. So coming to my home just financially wise, like worked. And once again, you spend so much time with people. And now these girls best, man. I love the group. I love this group. How'd y'all like the rules you set? How would you describe your connection with other women? Did you feel safe and supported? How was it? How important was it to be in a space only for Black women? Everyone said extremely important. So if your group is diverse, or like I have groups that I'm willing to open for people who are not like being with only Black people is so important to me. Right. So if it was important, why? And then they did all of the feedback on what did they think about the facilitator? How would you rate me as a facilitator? What did I do well? What could I have improved on? Were there expectations that were met or unmet? And then this is my favorite question because it's like, what ways do you feel like you've grown through your 10-week journey? And so they were able to check these off. Having more self-awareness, managing anxiety and stress better. I trust myself more. I deepen my spiritual or emotional practices. I build active community and sisterhood. I feel more connected to my body, so on and so forth. So that is my post assessment. And I did all of that through Google. Um, And there were, wow, I need next time I do this, I know to like make this a little bit longer. Cause like managing group dynamics and challenges was something I wanted to talk on in curriculum planning. I see we only have 2 minutes left. So do you guys have any last minute questions? Okay. There were definitely some other good things. But I think an important one is selecting your topics and intervention. So, psychoeducation, what type of experiential activities, whether it's role play, mindfulness, art therapy, like making sure there's more than just we're sitting and talking and processing, actually giving people other modalities and ways to, assign language to or express feelings, I think is really important. And just managing dominant talkers, silent participants, and someone going through an emotional crisis. That's something I prefaced at the beginning, but even throughout, I feel like when it came up, I made sure to call out the person in our group who didn't really say much. And I think after a while, the group started doing that themselves. We would popcorn, they'd be like, Talia, you go. No, you're going next. We want to hear from you this week. What were you doing? What were you up to? And everybody would kind of giggle, but I mean, by the end of it, she broke out of her shell and we gave her like a little award. So it was really cute. I hope you guys enjoyed everything. I can't believe how fast this time flew, but I hope you all found everything very informative. And since I know all of you personally, like, reach out to me, text me, call me. We'll sit for lunch, go to a happy hour. Getting Keisha off the couch this summer. Keisha been outside lately. So um, I hope to see y'all soon. Thank you all for showing up. Off, off into the workday, okay? I hope y'all have a great weekend.
Thank you.
You
You
too.
too.
Thank you.
Bye. We'll be in touch.
Bye.